All-Star Lacrosse. Grow the game and treat it well.
You're naughty.
Let me explain.
Today we are going to do a die. An inside out on a Lakota. This is a Kelly Green inside out die. Came out really nicely. There's a tiny little bit of bleed on the throat. It's real faded though. I mean, you can hardly see it. Just one little line here, little line here, and one back here. Just tiny little bit. Total success. When you're looking at an inside out die, you know, a full bleed across is a failure. Tiny little bit is a total win because these are difficult to do. I'm going to show you my technique. I'm sure people who also do inside out dies, you know, there's probably a bunch of different ways people do it. My way is a little bit time consuming, but pretty effective. As you can see, this is a nice looking die. This is the way I've developed to have the most success with inside outs. I still fail from time to time doing it. It's a stressful die to do, so let's get to it. All right, so the first thing you need obviously is a lacrosse head. This is a Nike Lakota. Next thing you need is some tape. I use 3M colored plastic tape. It's 1.5 inches wide, which is nice for coverage because the less you use, the less seams you have. Seams are where a lot of problems come in with dies. Then you need an X-Acto knife with a brand new blade, preferably. A hot glue gun is optional. If you have a head with tricky top string holes, it's a good idea. Also, if you're not confident with your seams, you can tape across the seams, which will help. And last but not least is a heat gun. You can also use a hairdryer. So the first thing we need to do is start masking. I usually start on the sidewall and kind of curve into the scoop. You'll notice some scoops or some heads have a weird transition between sidewall and scoop. You'll notice that line of demarcation right there. That's tricky to mask, and it's also tricky to cut. So you might have to have a couple tries at it. So here I'm just laying the tape down and pressing it down nice and evenly. You don't want any wrinkles. You don't want any little folds. So just take your time getting it on there well, and work it up as far as you want. If you know, the bigger, the longer the piece, the harder it is to work with, but it'll decrease the seams you have, which is a good thing. So now I've got one little window in the sidewall fully covered, so I'm going to just go ahead and show you how to cut that out. I just use my X-Acto and kind of rough cut around just to get that piece out. And that's usually how I do it. I don't do my final cuts right away. I'll get all the excess all the excess tape off, and then just slowly clean it up. You want to get right on the edge of the plastic and the tape and make it nice and flush. If you're careful and you've got a good angle, you won't cut the head, but if you're really in there tight, you may get a couple little shavings, plastic shavings from the head, which it's not the end of the world. Just don't press too hard. So what I do is I just keep adding tape and keep cutting off the excess until I've got the entire head covered. It's time consuming, it's a pain, but if you're careful and you do it well, you know, you're going to decrease your likelihood of bleed.
1 hour later.
Alright guys, so I've got the entire inside masked off. It's tricky around the scoop, but if you're patient and careful, you shouldn't have any major issues. I've already gone over it with the heat gun, and I just kind of lightly go over it. You don't want it to bubble when it gets too hot, but after you heat it up, just press it down with your fingers. This is the area that concerns me the most on this one, because the top string holes they kind of curve in instead of just cutting off like right here. I'm not sure if I've got a good seal in there. In fact, right there I can see that I don't. So I'm very likely to get some bleed in here. Alright, so I decided I wasn't going to do the seams with hot glue. That's a gamble, but I'm feeling pretty confident with these edges. However, the top string holes, the way they are on the Lakota, they kind of curve in from here toward the hole. So I'm not getting a real good seal right there. So what I'm going to do is just put a little dab of hot glue in the back. Try to keep it as neat as possible. anything that gets hot glue on it won't die. Alright, before the glue was all the way dry, I just kind of doing this, just pushing on it just to get it off the plastic, make sure it's nowhere but inside the hole, and that works pretty well. You definitely want to let it cool enough where it's okay to touch it, but don't let it cool all the way. Alright, I'm going to just keep rubbing on this and try to get that extra glue off, and next we dye it. Okay, I've got my water heated to almost a boil. I'm going to dump it in here. That's really hot. Got my Kelly green RIT dye. Alright, stir it up a little bit. And here's where I hope that my water's not too hot to melt my adhesive, and where we pray that we've got good masking and everything's sealed. In she goes. I'm going to flip it and then let it sit for a while. Alright, I'm just going to leave it alone. Let it soak up the color. Alright, so it's been in here for about 20 minutes. It's a nice looking green. Go rinse it off and take off the stuff and see what we got. Alright, so moment of truth. Here's where we find out if we got any bleed. Tiny bit in the throat here. Oh, you can't even really see it on the camera. I wasn't worried about the throat. The scoop is the part that can really fall apart. It's about as close to perfect as I've ever gotten on an inside out. There is, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Right there, tiny little bit. Can barely even see it. Right here, there's a little tiny little line. And that looks like it's it. I got some adhesive still up here. Uh-oh. It's adhesive with dye in it. Pretty nice. That is the inside out dye. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll be back next week with something else. Hey guys, thanks for watching my video. If you want to see more, click the video that's playing in the upper right of this screen. Click subscribe, click like. Go check me out on Instagram, RedStarLax. And be excellent to each other.